Hello, welcome. In my content creation schedule, I want to upload a video talking about Genshin's problem, but I scrapped the idea for a moment because I think it's more appropriate to talk about it in the next update, while I talk about Natlan as a whole because Collective of Plenty will be released in that update now that Farissa and Yasan got their trip marketing. However, since I talked about Mavuika not too long ago, I feel like the stars are aligned on me because this new event, Realm of Tempered Valor, has created an interesting topic about how gatecapped this event is to certain Atlan characters, or more specifically, Mavuika. If you don't use her, you have to have at least Constellation 2 characters, top tier supports, or just have them extremely high invested to get all of the rewards. This discourse is interesting because the main problem of this event lies in FOMO, which if you don't know stands for fear of missing out. Although if you want me to be more specific, it's this name card which can only be obtained after you reach 100 points. Since it's so hard to get it, players that have this name card can flex it to others in their bio, which causes a discourse. But is there more than that? In today's video, I'll be discussing this event, what seems to be the issue, how the Nightsoul blessing mechanic has become a problem, and my opinion as a, let's just say, moderately irresponsible player financially. Now, before we get into the problem, I should get this out of the way. If you're a new player or a casual player, the name card is not worth fussing about. It's just a cosmetic item at the end of the day, and I can vouch for you that there's a lot of better looking name cards in the game. Like this one, for obvious reasons. It's all Hatham specs after all. Getting the name card won't give you anything other than small sum of Mora and 3 chunks of enhancement crystals that you can easily create a lot more from forging. If you really want that name card, my advice is you can use foot buffs in this event. All in all, it's not worth getting that high because at the end, you only need the Primogems and you can easily obtain them in the event whether you're a casual or not. However, just because I said that doesn't mean this event has its own issues. As someone who has been playing this game from the start, this is the first time that I feel Genshin is trying so hard to gatecap an event with a very specific character because even previous events were not like this to reach Platinum. I am speaking as a veteran player, and of course, you can take it as me complaining for your own entertainment. Don't forget to take everything I said with a grain of salt. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko Gitsune and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. Now let's talk about the premise of this event and the rules of it. So like every update, Genshin will always have a combat related event where it has special gimmicks. This event is not different from any of them, but they do add something we haven't seen before. And that is tower climbing mechanics, where the enemies will get stronger the more you reach higher floor. Generally speaking, tower climbing mechanics have some sort of puzzle with specific types of characters that you can use in order to clear the stage. This event is no different, where each day has a different set of buffs to give more advantage to certain characters. In order for you to get all the rewards, you'll need to clear a few floors. You can start from the first floor, or you can immediately go to a certain floor if you want to clear it as fast as possible. Speaking of ASAP, you also have very limited time, that being only 30 seconds, so you have to clear it as fast as possible. This is where burst damage characters shine the most here. The highest minimum floor reward of each stage is floor 20, where you'll be rewarded with a platinum medal and small rewards on the side. Some people, in the minority at least, feel like platinum rewards should give more, but I personally find it to be a good thing so players don't have to feel pressured to get the important rewards of this event, and that is the Primogems. You only need to clear floor 9, so you can clear this event and take the Primogems easily without missing out a lot. Sounds very straightforward, yes? It doesn't sound like a hard event. However, despite the amount of overloaded buffs you gain, characters with that specific buffs cannot even gain the full benefit of this unless they are heavily invested or with specific constellations. Even characters like Arlecchino have a hard time in this event because the enemy's HP is so overloaded as you go, and her Vaporized team have a hard time clearing it. The third stage is even funnier because it's clearly meant for Mizuki, but you really think Mizuki would be able to clear it without a significant amount of help from other characters? Yesterday, while I was writing the script, I actually had to do a bit of research in order to see how people cleared this event. I already have low expectations because I know a very specific character will be the most used character in this event, and yep, I am not surprised at all. It's obviously Mavuika. As you can see, all of them have the same team, that being Mavuika, Shilonen, Citlali, and Bennett, sometimes Perina on the side. In all fairness, I think that this is an understandable team considering the time limit is only 30 seconds and only very few characters have burst damage in this game. Aside from Mavuika, those characters are Eula, Raiden Shogun, Arlecchino, Mavia, Molani, Kinich, and Chaska. However, even with Arlecchino or Cloran with their Bond of Life buff mechanic in the 4th stage, they still struggle with floor 19 because of how stacked the enemy's HP are. But for some reason, Mavuika is able to cheese every single stage in the event with or without the buff related to her. I also asked you guys about your opinion in my community post yesterday that I have to unfortunately delete because I accidentally showed my UID. Well, if you saw it, hi, feel free to add me. Anyways, I am actually quite surprised how pretty much every single comment has a very similar answer, and that is how gate-capped this event is with Mavuika. There's even one of you with actually higher investment and constellation characters and still struggling, which is interesting because there's one video I found where they use Constellation 6 Navia, Constellation 3 Farina, Constellation 6 Shilonen, and Constellation 6 Bennett, yet their best score is floor 22. As for me, I was able to clear every single stage in this event and got the name card with only Mavuika's semi-free-to-play team, with Citlali changed to Rosaria instead. Mind you, I really tried using Arlecchino in stage 4, added with foot buffs even, yet it's quite difficult to clear the damn stage with Rosaria as the free-to-play option or with Yelan for more damage consistency. It might be possible with Citlali of course, but again, it is gate capped with the second character in this event, and that is Citlali. After that, in stage 5, it's obviously made for Natlan characters. But again, Mavuika takes the biggest spotlight here. I did try to use Kinich here, but even that doesn't really feel right because his best team also has Mavuika in it. And if you guys don't know, Mavuika on her own, even with sub DPS build, still hits goddamn hard. Adding more salt to the injury, the stage's buff is related to the Nightsoul burst mechanic, where this mechanic can stack and trigger faster depending on how many Natlan characters you have in your team. With that said, this comes to the third character that gate-capped this event, and that is Shilonen. This event is so strange because I do find it quite enjoyable on the first day, but at the same time, the time limit is too short. This makes it quite clear that they want you to use Mavuika in this event as the best in-slot option. I don't know why they would even do something like this because even in the past events, this has never happened before because you can't clear any stage without very demanding or specific characters to gain the platinum medal. I even often use characters such as Ningguang, who mind you is a very underrated character by the way, and still managed to gain platinum with her. I doubt she can do it now anyway because of how bloated these enemies are. Also, one of you mentioned something really interesting, and that is, there's no trial characters in this event. Speaking of interesting, since you made it this far, I assume you like this video then, yeah? If you do, please consider subscribing to this channel because 80% to 90% of people watching my videos are not subscribed. It would be nice if you do because I work on all of my videos all by myself, from script writing, voice recording, video editing, drawing my chibi avatars, and even the thumbnail. The moment you hit that like and subscribe button, you'll be helping this channel a lot and that keeps me going on making and improving the quality of my videos. With that said, let's continue. In the past, they always add trial characters for you to be able to clear an event. They do this so you can clear the stage with ease and at least at bare minimum because these characters only have middling builds. However, even with that, you can still clear the platinum with these characters if you have good skills or invested sub DPS characters, which I have achieved something like that before. Of course, you can always take that with a grain of salt since I have no proof of footage, but I can safely say that usually sub DPS and support characters have very high value because they can carry your main DPS to the maximum potential even if their build is subpar. However, strangely enough, they don't really have that in this event. Not only do I find this rather strange, but also quite a huge missed opportunity to use this moment to showcase other characters so they can sell better in the future. This could be a great opportunity for players who want to pull for certain characters, but then they want to feel it for themselves first whether they want this character or not, or have to experience what it feels like to have a complete team for a specific team comp. I embarrassingly don't have Farina because she dodged me twice for some reason. I don't understand, Farina. I spent money to get you here. You don't want my money? Like I said at the beginning of this video, the discourse lies within this name card, and I'll say this again, if you're a casual player, a name card is not worth fussing about. The name card is purely for flexing purposes only, and I'll be real with you all, nobody cares. It's just a game at the end of the day, so whether you get it or not, it won't ruin your already declining financial stability if you will in this game, or ruin your life. But it will drive you insane if you try to force yourself to get the name card that no one is going to give you a clap anyway. However, the argument is still valid, and that is why this event is so gatekept to Mavuika's premium team. Well, the easiest answer is of course to please whales, because some whales in this game do need to have their money worth. After all, when can you see comically high numbers in this game where you can easily gain 20 million HP in a single event? But there's also interesting talk about this because some theorize whether this is also to boost Mavuika's sale and getting players to develop the sense of FOMO, or fear of missing out, like I already said. I sorta inclined to believe this speculation because if you guys haven't watched my last video, Mavuika's sale is surprisingly lower than Arlecchino and Yuvalet. Of course, don't get me wrong because this sale is still very high, but at the same time, compared to the numbers you gain from the other two, this is rather on the lower side. We can understand why Arlecchino has higher sale value, and that's because we already know who she is, and we already saw her model during Sumeru's release. Yuvalet is a more unique one because he is the first introduced to us in Fontaine, or if you're a lore player, he is indirectly introduced to us in Enkanomiya, and he has one of the higher sales in the game. Although to be fair with you all, charts like this are inaccurate anyway, and it's always good to take them with a grain of salt because let's be real, only the company knows how well their character sells. Paimon Moe's data is also based on their user submission anyway, so it's always a good idea to not take them into face value. However, with the way this event is being made, I can't help but think maybe there's a little bit more truth to them. If you're not updated with gaming news, apparently Genshin's Chinese revenue dropped by 40% in 2024. Even so, they are still at #1 most best-selling game in China. However, how does that compare to global? Well, they suffered the same fate. I am not an expert in things like this, but I would like to think a reason why this is the case. The most obvious one is because we are no longer in pandemic, everyone is busy, and there's new games that came out recently. Wuthering Waves is a worthy competitor to Genshin Impact, and they have been doing pretty good for themselves. It seems they're trying to combat this decline by making outland characters to be as powerful as possible, and this is where they introduced the most controversial mechanic we have ever had in this game, and that is the Nightsoul's Blessing. Ever since Fontaine, we have been introduced with the Numa and Yuzia mechanic, where specific characters can trigger this effect on certain enemies, immobilizing them for some time. However, this mechanic is not game-breaking because it's one of those things where if you want it, then good, you have a slight upper hand in your party. Natlan also has this regional mechanic where you can use Natlan characters and gain the upper hand when facing certain enemies. However, one thing that these characters made so limiting for players is how this impacted the whole team in itself. Nightsoul Burst gives temporary buffs to the said Natlan character if you trigger an elemental damage, which is nice, but then you realize that this makes them stronger the more you have Natlan characters in your party, because the cooldown is reduced from 18 seconds if you have one character, to 12 seconds if you have 2, to 9 seconds if you have 3 Natlan characters in the party. That's just insane because that's double the duration, and every Natlan character in the party will be affected with buffs from their respective kit. This essentially gives them another talent, making them have 3 talents instead of 2 with the usual characters. Secondly is the Nightsoul line damage, which essentially is just the same as elemental damage. It's nothing to write home about, and the effect is basically the same with Numa and Lucia, where their damage is mostly to combat certain enemies and not that game breaking in most situations. Until they decide to add this buff in Spiral Abyss and events. Most of the time, these buffs are insanely high, like in the last patch, every single Natlan character has a very high use rate. I have Chaska, Kinich, and Mavuika as my Natlan DPS, and I can vouch you, all these characters were performing way above their average when they added these buffs. But then, it dropped significantly the moment this update was released. The reason is very simple. The Nightsoul buff is no longer there, so their damage plummets very significantly. Take a look at this for example. Kinich is one of the most used character in 5.3 because of the Nightsoul buff and very commonly used in the second half. However, in 5.4, only 16% of people owning Kinich use him in this abyss because his damage went down very significantly. The same goes with Chaska, who had significantly higher use rate until she went down a tier, and just like Kinich, only 28% of people owning Chaska use her in this abyss, over 50% decrease compared to her use in the last patch. Personally, I have always thought that Nightsoul Blessing is going to be a Doom mechanic because these characters are only good with their own regional characters to bring out their best potential. We are introduced again in the previous patch that Not Cry is going to have a new gameplay mechanic once it's released. So of course, new regional mechanics, new characters, and new artifact domains that benefit these regional characters more. With that, how is that going to affect the Natlan instead? There won't be any more Nightsoul Blessing buff because we are entering a new meta. However, does it still matter with the sales? Yes, because these characters are the best, and if not, one of the only ways for you to clear the event or even Spiral Beast the best way possible in this moment of time. We are proven with the last Spiral Beast where it can be difficult to clear without Natlan characters, and then we have this event where the easiest way for you to clear floor 20 is by having Mavuika's premium team. Personally, I find it very scummy that they do this, but at the same time with my business and Asian brain, I can see why. At the end of the day, you have to remember that Genshin Impact is still a business. If anything, I feel like Genshin Impact is still generous enough to actually let the players still get the Primogems anyway with the easiest level possible for this event. Besides, game modes like Spiral Abyss and Imaginary Theater are meant for endgame players anyway to have content for them to enjoy. You can't expect yourself to be able to clear such game modes on the first day or only in a few months of playing in this current state of game since Genshin Impact has been running for almost 5 years at this point, and that's already half a decade. But that doesn't mean that gatekeeping mechanics like Nightsoul Blessing is not a problem either, because this makes you, the player, have a hard time justifying using characters you like and have to use other characters for the sake of clearing content. The gameplay becomes a lot more stricter, but also narrowed down characters that you can use and very little variety. Okay, I get it though. It is a gacha game at the end of the day where the main goal of this game genre is to collect the characters. However, don't you want to use your favorite characters in endgame as well? This event is definitely one of the most unenjoyable event, at least for me, because I can only clear every single stage with Mavuika's team, and it's honestly not fun if you have to do it 5 consecutive times in a row. Usually I would use Alhaitham to clear at least one stage, but I can't even do that here to gain the maximum reward possible. I mean, I could, but why do I have to do that if you're going to waste a lot of time? I like to challenge myself, and I'm happy that events like this exist because combat events are my favorite type of event, so I can play around with my characters. But this is the first time I feel rather let down because of how restricting the game wants the endgame players to clear the game. I know that Genshin Impact has been labeled as a baby game recently because the combat doesn't really feel that engaging anymore. However, I feel like Nightsoul Blessing is one of the worst ways to combat this kind of problem because it just makes you so restricting to use only very specific characters, and for me personally, I don't really like something like that. I really like using different variety of characters, you know? I really like using Alhaitham, I like using Neuvillette, I like using Gaming, I like using Sethos, and I really like using every single character that I have because I earn money to gain them. So why do they have to make it so restricting in order to make it engaging per se? I mean, the concept is nice, but the way it's restricting the players, that's just what I don't like. What do you think about this issue? Let me know in the comments. Tiana! Hope you're happy, Rayren.